So we're back on this job again. I'm starting to fit this gear for the lay shaft, but it's a bit tight, so I've got it down as far as I'm going to put the nut, because you've got to put this one on first. The next thing we're going to do is, when we can find it, just going to clean off this little needle roller. Leave that dry. We're going to put a washer, a spacer here, right down at the bottom there. Now that's dried, we'll give this a good old oil in, and same on the shaft there. We'll give that a generous coating of oil. These bushes are split bushes. See, it's got a split in it, so we open it up. Clip that down. We take the gear that's nice and clean. Again, oil it. Now there's an old synchro ring on there. We'll take that off. And we'll drop that onto there like that. And you can see that this gear is holding it off, and the reason why I'm doing it like that, just let me turn this, turn the ultrasonic off. I'm going to put a rag in there and jam up the gears so we can tighten up this nut. Now I'm just using an adjustable to pull it down, but we're not going to torque it up yet. Because like I say, it's going down, it's just a bit awkward, that's all. Just make sure it doesn't fall off this stand. Perhaps I should have mentioned, the reason why we do it on a stand is because of the shafts. You can't really build these gearboxes up lying down on a bench. It's really, really difficult. The very first one I did like that, that turned out to be a nightmare. I got it done, but I would have struggled. So we'll pull that down. Best not to hammer these down, these gears. Don't hammer it, because you will find you can damage the lay shaft bearings. Now there's some bits of shavings coming off that nut. I'll have to blow those off. I wonder where that's coming from. It's like the nut's a bit tight. Oh, that's getting. I think that's getting there. Again, we're not going to tighten this up yet. Just going to get it somewhere close. I just don't like those particles there. I'll just this off. Put this across here. I actually have a little hole in there. There we go. And I'm going to blow those little bits over my toolbox. Right, that's ready to go. Now we can get the last of the synchros out of the box and fit that. Oh, I already had it on. I already fitted it. That was the... See, these were the old ones. These are the old ones we took out, and these are the Ashcroft ones. They've got like a coating on the inside, which is a little bit different. Now, we'll put that on, and then we can put our reverse fifth selector on this thing here. Now this is a bit of a tricky one to fit, because we don't want those slippers to come out. So this is the end plate that goes on, Oh, that's right. Notice there's a little cutout notch there to stop this twisting round. So the next thing to go on is the synchro hub for the reverse. Now this is a wee bit tricky because you've got to line up the teeth inside, and we're using this tool to press on this rather than hammering it. We don't want to hammer bearings wherever we can possibly do, but at the same time we've got to hold this up so it's in mesh, if you see what I mean. Those three little slippers sit in this ring. You see those little notches there? Oh, no you can't. See those little notches? Well, the slippers have to sit into that. So the easiest way I've found is to put it on the gear and lift it and turn it, and there, you see? Then it drops in. And then it won't go anywhere, but it's a bit of a bloody nightmare because you've got to hold that and all that at the same time. Anyway, let's persevere. There we go, it's perfect, it went on lovely. So the next thing, I fit this little clip, and that's the stop for the shaft. It's a bit tricky to get on. It might bounce about a bit. There we go, that's that on. Now remember, we haven't tightened up this nut yet, so we'll do that later. But once we've started playing around with things and we've got our things tight, if you had a couple of screwdrivers, which we probably haven't got here, yes we have, you will see on our lay shaft things have settled down a little bit. This gear here, we've got a little bit of end float. Well, that's not too bad. So before we put everything in, we might have to add 1/1000 of an inch or two to the shim on the opposite side. But remember, do not take this cover off, this piece here, the clutch bearing piece, whilst it's vertical like this, because it will drop down. The shaft will drop. You don't want that. Let's see what it's like on the main shaft. Main shaft's nice. So we just add a little bit. What we'll do is we'll set up the gauge. I think it's what it's happened is now it's all pulled down a little bit with that bearing. It's moved it a little bit. Interesting. Well, let's see what it is. So like I say, as a double check now, I've set up the gauge and we're going to put a couple of screwdrivers either side, and I've set that to 0 and see what the lift is. Oh, see, it's well, you couldn't see there because it's moved again. God, they're always moving. Right, let's see. I'm going to give that gauge a bit of a wipe because it's so freaking oily now. If I was doing these every day, I'm sorry you're seeing the back of my head, but I've so little room to manoeuvre here, it's unbelievable. If I was doing these permanently, you know, doing them all day long, I'd have some brackets made so we can bolt them straight to the casing, you know, like this, instead of using the mag mount. Because a mag mount is bloody awful. It's good, but it's bloody awful because this casing's got, it's like a casting with indentations in it. There's not a great deal of places to put it, and then you've got to figure out that when you're turning it, it usually hits the knob, you know, for the on-off knob for the magnet. And anyway, that's that ramble over. So, see what we've got. Three. We're on 3/1000 of an inch. See, what's this? Set it to 0, double check. Yep, 3. So we've got to add 3 to this small plus 3. Alright, so that's alright. The like I say, the main shaft's fine. That's lovely. But we just got to add a little bit to that one. No, I was wrong as usual. It's 0.025, that's 1/1000 of an inch end float, and 0.025 preload. So we're out. That's 1/1000 of an inch. We're out. We need around 2 to 3/1000 of an inch to make that right. That's not a big deal because we can do that when the gearbox is flipped back over before we finish it. So that's all right, and that's why I didn't put any gasket sealer on the thing, just because I wanted to double check this. So now let's have a look and see what we're going to do next. The next thing we're going to do is assemble this reverse fork. And this is a bit tricky because it's got these little brass pieces that fall out. Just check them and make sure they're not damaged. You've already put, this is your little interlock spool. Put that on there, on your shaft. Put this into the, it's so tricky. Put that in, and then we've got to sort of somehow get that round. It might have been better going from the other side actually. Wait a minute, see if we can get it like this. Wait, there. Now, I don't know if you could see that, but you've got to sort of fiddle around with this, get this put on, turn it round, drop this yoke on, this interlock, and you can't see the pin's at the back. Have I got that old piece here? I don't think so. Got bloody everything else. No, I haven't got the old piece. Anyway, drop it on. It'll only go on one way, and then slide that on, and then it'll line up. And then you can put the bolt. So the next thing we're going to do, before we put the cover on, we're going to find out the torque of this bolt and tighten it down properly, and then we're going to take it off the stands and pin over this stalking by supporting this on a block of wood, so when we hit this shaft it's not hitting the bearing, it's hitting a block of wood. So with the gearbox supported on a block of wood, this gear, you see, look, it's just off, but it's just enough there so there's no thrust going through the bearing. I'm just going to stalk that nut over with a punch. Like that. And one at the other side. If you seem to remember, these weren't stalked over before. There we go. Now, I had two schools of thought on this. I was thinking about putting it back together with the extension case on and trying the gears before we go any further without a gasket on here, because that won't make much of a difference, and without putting the key drive in there for the oil pump, so we can just bolt it back together and see if the shift's working properly, because otherwise we might have to take it to bits again. I don't know. I'm just always curious about that shift fork, that new one. It just seemed a bit stiff, you know, but it's in neutral there. It's lovely, you know. But we don't know. We're in uncharted territory. Let's clear some stuff up. Oh, by the way, I found my ball. You know, I was looking for the ball for this detent. It dropped on the floor. I wonder how I found that. Right, let's put it back on the stand. So we're going to, when we drop the cover on the extension housing, we've also got to drop this little thing on here. I think we've got a spare one. Yeah, anyway, so give us two for some reason. It's got a cutout in it here, and it goes sort of like that, so you can put the roll pin in nice and square. So now we've turned the shaft into a position where we can get the roll pin in. I'm just thinking about using just a bolt for now, so we don't have to mess about with a pin. I might just do that. I might just get a little bolt or a piece of rod to go through there, so it'll turn. Oh, what about the clevis pin? So actually what I did was that we were supplied with a brand new roll pin, and I could, because I had a bolt, well, I had one somewhere. I had a little bolt, but it was too loose. So I've just tapped it in temporarily. I'm going to now organise this so that's in the middle, and then we'll bolt on the cover. This little piece fits in there like that, look, and that little cutout fits in there. All right. It's so fiddly. You'll kill me if you're going to do this, because it's a bloody awful thing to do. Right. See if we can get it lined up. There's water coming out of here. Well, that must have been from cleaning. Let's get that over there. Come on, there we go. I'm not putting any gaskets on it at the moment. There. But I'll find the bolts and bolt it down. I've got the box back down onto the bench again. By God, you need to be strong lifting these up and down on that stand. I'm going to have to think of a better way. A better way perhaps would be a big plate bolted to the bench with a hole in it, so you could just drop it down, because it's too high. Anyways, less of that bitching on. Does it work? Well, what's that? That's first gear. Second. Oh, wait a minute. No, that's reverse. See how easy it went in? There's first. That's why it's a bit notchy. It's not notchy as such, but it's just getting over that, getting it into the right position. There's third. There's third. And there's fourth. And there is fifth. It's very difficult to judge. And the bias spring should be set towards third, but you can see that they're, well, I don't know if you can see, they're a bit loose, you see. We're going to set that up, but it's not too bad. Yeah. I think it's going to be notchy when you drive it until it gets run in, because again we've got new synchros in there, but at least the reverse goes. There you go. A nice positive click.